Hi, everybody. John Halda here, and I'm excited to have with me Jessica Meadows. Jessica, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
For those who have not met Jessica yet, she is the driving force behind Square One Recruiting. And Jessica, you guys started that business in what, June of this year?
In June, yes, sir.
And we're recording December 22, in case this has been out there for a while. You all have come on like gangbusters since you came out loud with your new business. Congratulations.
Thank you. It has been incredible.
Jessica, we were chatting recently and you graciously offered to come onto here and talk a bit about some of the things you've learned about what works for recruiting and what doesn't work for recruiting in the TSP space. With your permission, can I jump right in and start picking your brain?
Absolutely.
By the way, we will be at the end of this we're going to have all of Jessica's contact info. I'm sure she'd love to hear from you if you're interested in her services, although I think they're running your capacity. I don't know if they have room for new clients at the moment. Is that fair?
You're looking in January, we will be taking on a few more clients. Yes.
Okay. Hopefully you can control the growth so it doesn't go chaotic for you.
Absolutely.
But that said, I know that you're the type that always wants to meet new folks. So even if folks just want to call you to talk more about recruiting, is that fair?
Yes, very. I've been in this space for 8 years, and recruiting is definitely probably one of the hardest pieces. And I have learned a lot of things, and I'm not one to gatekeep that information. I want everybody to be successful in recruiting, not just for their business, but for the candidates they employ. So absolutely here to help.
So I'm a bit of an ignoramus, so this will be perfect because I'm going to ask a lot of stupid questions. I have talked to some other folks about recruiting, and I want to validate some things I think I've learned. From a process standpoint, am I correct in thinking that recruiting starts by casting a net with advertisements and other things to try to get the attention of people looking for jobs, right?
Right.
Then they engage with you in some way. They call you, they text you, they email you, whatever they're doing. They fill out an application online. So you know who's raised their hand saying, I'm interested. And now there's a big thing, I think, of trying to make sure you close the loop with them quickly and solidly. And at this point, they're an applicant that you're tracking, right? Because you now know who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why there are software systems called applicant tracking systems, or ATSs. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Okay. And so you as a recruiter would work that process, right?
Right.
And interview them, talk to them, answer questions, sell them on the job, if you will. And at some point it has to now go into, hey, they're interested. You got to get them onboarded through First Advantage, right?
Correct.
And then eventually there's a road test if they get through the First Advantage.
Yes. Drug test, road test. They also have to take a test online before they can even get to the road test.
Okay. Quick aside, Square One, what part of that whole thing that I talked about does Square One do? Only parts of it or all of it?
Square One was set up to do the entire process. It is a full cycle recruiting service. So basically we get into, the clients will call us, contractors will call us, tell us exactly what they're looking for. We will go over company history. We will go over what their values are. We will go over exactly what they need, where they need it, and kind of the time in which they need it by. So
Okay.
Some contractors are on their last leg and they need them yesterday.
So I'm going to take it as valid that Square One is good at the whole process. Fair?
Fair, I would say.
I won't ask you to defend it, but I'm setting you up for this question. When you look at the way most TSPs do their own recruiting, where do you see them falling down the most in that process? Let's start there.
Response time and not thinking outside the box.
Response time for the initial contact or all of the contacts?
All of it together. The initial contact it's imperative. It needs to be right away. That candidate needs to think to themselves, oh, I just applied to this 5 minutes ago. They're already reaching out. That says something about the company, that they're very interested, but it's the contact keeping up with them throughout the entire process. First Advantage is a tricky system. Luckily, we have really gotten good at it, I guess is the best way to say it. We know how to get things done quicker. We keep in contact with First Advantage just as much as we keep in contact with the candidate. So walking the candidate through that process, giving them daily updates, if not twice a day, letting them know exactly where they are. If an employer has not been verified, we make sure to contact that employer ourselves. Now with the new First Advantage features that have come out here recently, a lot of contractors may not know about, but we will contact the employers ourselves.
Tell me about those First Advantage features. Don't tease me.
That's right. So First Advantage just recently came out with a form. Normally, First Advantage is the only person that could call in to verify the employment. That would take quite a bit of time because if anybody has received a call from First Advantage, it comes through as a toll-free number. A lot of phones will block it if they have the spam call blocker on. So nobody would answer these calls, come over as a 1-800 out of the country. That became very difficult. And it not only with the calling, but there is a lot of companies now that use third-party verification services that don't answer phone calls. You have to go online. Sometimes you even have to pay a fee to get the verification and the DOT questions done. That has been the biggest hiccup, I guess. But now they have a form where we can do it ourselves. We can call the employer. We can ask them the questions. We can verify the DOT. And we fill out this form and send it into First Advantage. That response time has been anywhere from 6 to 8 hours that they update the employment.
As opposed to the old days where it took how long to do an employment verification?
Anywhere from 2 to 3 days, if you're lucky.
Okay. If it goes well.
If it goes well, correct.
Okay. So, all right, I'm going to push back. Pretend I'm a 10 truck owner and me and my spouse are working our butts off and we have a bookkeeper that's helping. I've got things to do. I'm dealing with breakdowns. I'm dealing with call offs. I'm dealing with lease payments. I'm dealing with all this other stuff. I can't make my day such that when someone calls about a job, within 5 minutes I've called. I mean, is there technology I could use to make my life easier to do this?
There are certain job boards, there's certain, systems where it will send an automatic reply, but that is noted by the candidate. Don't think that they don't recognize that. They are looking for personal contact these days. It's become so automated. They know that they're texting a bot. They know that they're not talking to a real person. I personally contact everybody. If a candidate will text me, they text me to my mobile number. I don't have an extra phone. It is all coming to me. And I'll receive text messages up until 11 p.m. at night.
Well, that's great, but not everybody can work with you. So what am I as the prototypical contractor going to do? I mean, do you get texts at 3 a.m. from drivers and do you respond within 5 minutes?
I don't. So those are the ones that do go unnoticed until as soon as I wake up around 5 or 6. I send a response that I will call them back as soon as possible. I also have, when I'm on the phone, which is 99% of my day here at the office, if I get a call come through, I have those automatic text message replies. Currently on a phone call, if you're calling about a CDL position, please send your name, location, and we will get right back with you.
What would you recommend that I, as the example TSP owner, right? What would you recommend I do if I'm going to do my own? Should I have a separate phone? Should I have a different number that rings differently so I know, aha, that's a potential driver. I got to drop everything.
In my ads, what I've seen that works the best is going to be putting in your phone number. If you have another phone, if that's how you want to do it, absolutely. If you want to keep it to yours, I can't handle 2 phones at one time. I can barely handle my own phone. So I have mine set up to where the ads read, if you are interested, text apply with the state to this number. Majority of drivers are going to send you a text message instead of calling you first. So as soon as I can send back a response to that message, I will. And I think that would be the best way for contractors. If you see a notification light up on your phone, send a quick response. Thank you for applying. Do you have time at 3 o'clock today for a call? At least let them know, acknowledge that they have reached out, acknowledge that they are interested, and respond back with the same amount of interest, even though they're going to understand, hey, can I call you at 3? or set up a time that works best for you, but just make sure to give them that initial contact.
Okay. So response time was a critical one. You mentioned something else was like where most contractors fall down after response time. What was that?
It's where the candidate is in process with First Advantage and they are maybe worried that they haven't heard from you in 24 to 48 hours. They're
So
thinking, oh,
constant
no.
touching.
Yes. Constant, just, hey, your background check came back. Everything looks good. We're waiting on the MVR. It's set to be back today. Hey, you know, Penske has not verified your experience from last year. Do you have a better contact number for them? Great. Thank you for the number. I'll call them now. Just keeping them in constant contact updates. They do receive emails from First Advantage. Some of them don't look at them, of course. Some of them do, and they will send questions asking, hey, do I need to do anything about this? No, we'll take care of it for you. So keeping them in constant contact with updates, what they need, what's the next steps once this MVR comes back. Asking about, hey, did you go and take your drug test? Do you plan on taking your drug test soon? That's the only thing we need. Things of that nature. Just keeping them updated and letting them know the next steps coming up.
It's getting pretty obvious to me with the amount of time that it sounds like this takes and the effort that this takes, why as contractors get bigger, one of their first hires is a dedicated recruiter.
Absolutely. I think it is.
Whether it's
vital.
outsourced or internal. You've done this internally for some folks too, right?
Yes, sir. For the past 8 years, I've been a recruiter. I was in operations management for a little bit of time and came back into recruiting because that's where I feel like I belong. It's the most enjoyable. It's something new every day. But I think every contractor, whether you have 5 trucks or 50, I think having someone part-time, full-time, you know, in-house, outsourced, you need to have someone dedicated to those candidates.
So if I propose to you that hiring a driver is a sales process, right? You're selling the business, you're selling the driver on the job and on the company, right?
Absolutely.
What can I do if I were an owner to make my job or my company more attractive to potential candidates? Everybody talks about money, right? So we'll start there if you want, but are there other things that I should be thinking about besides just hard currency?
Best thing I could say, honestly, is to be personable. Make them understand that you're not just, you know, candidates are used to the big trucking companies right now, treating them like a number. That has been the biggest thing. They, you know, when they answer phone calls or when you reach out to them, they almost have a cold demeanor because they're not expecting anybody to take that initiative and not make it just a business call, really get to know that candidate and how this is going to help them. That's what I have seen. If you're cold and just to the point, this is what I have, do you want it or not? They're going to lose interest. It's going to fly past them just like the past 10 calls they've had. But if you really connect with the applicant, tell them about your company, you know, tell them about yourself. If you're the owner calling them, really engage with that candidate, make them feel like this is home. Don't let them feel like this is just the next step in, you know, a cycle of where they stay for 5 or 6 months. Make them feel like this is the home they can stay in an industry that is in a vicious cycle of constant turnover. Drivers know that. They see that. They know that they could call somebody else and get the extra 2 cents more a mile, get a sign-on bonus, get this, get that, a newer truck. But that contact with the driver, making them feel comfortable, making them feel wanted, making them feel like they have a place to call home and make it a career. That's what's vital right now in the day that we're in. It's completely different from years past.
That trumps newer trucks, that trumps signing bonuses, that trumps a few extra pennies per mile, that trumps bennies, that trumps 401ks.
I believe it does because I have contractors who have the absolute best benefits in the world, probably the highest per mile rate, and they have candidates that stay. And then I have other contractors who don't have all those luxuries. They don't, you know, they're not big enough to maybe get a 401k yet. They're working on it. They don't have the best insurance. There may be a cent to 2 cents less per mile. When we initially speak with that candidate, they're like, well, this one is posted at this rate. It's a little bit higher. Then we get them in contact with the owner. They know we're the recruiters. So we're that initial contact, yes. But I always give them the opportunity to speak with the operating manager, the owner, whoever the initial contact should be for the company. And once they speak with them, they're sold on the job because that contractor did the right thing. They made them feel this is a secure place. Yeah, I could get a little more money elsewhere, but they're not going to treat me the way he's treating me.
I get it. I mean, I'm not a driver, but years ago I had a job and I couldn't believe they were offering me the money they were offering me. And I took the job. And after about 3 weeks, I realized that the only reason people worked there was because of the money they were offering, because everything else about it was a nightmare.
Absolutely. And it's not just the initial contact that, that says it speaks volumes, but it's also proving to that driver 3 to 4 months down the road that when you've been with a company who paid you more, but you couldn't call anybody at 2 o'clock in the morning when you're broke down in Oklahoma, this contractor answered on the first ring, got my truck taken care of, got me back on the road. It's the constant, I guess, presence that they feel that they're not alone out there. A lot of drivers are left alone. Yes, they have dispatchers who are on call, quote unquote, but are they actually going to answer the phone when they call? You need to have someone that's always available for these guys.
So if I'm doing my own recruiting, are there different strategies? I would think, and again, naive question, but if I'm looking to grow and I need to hire a couple drivers because I might get some routes, or I just got awarded routes and I have 4 weeks to get them staffed, that's one story. But what about the case where I've got a route and a driver's been doing it great, and then they call me up one morning and say, I'm done, I quit. And I need someone to drive that truck immediately. Is it a different strategy that I need to, or tactics that I have to employ, or is it the same either way?
Well, first off, really find out what happened with your current driver, of course. Retention is a big thing. Figure out what went wrong and can you salvage it in the first place. And while you're conducting, that potential exit interview, and if they are mind made up, get an ad out there, throw a couple extra dollars, marketing it the right way is key. If you live in a city, a smaller suburb, city doesn't get as many applicants, I've noticed change the location of which you advertise. Majority of these job boards are going to post 50-mile radius if for whatever city you post. So if there is a, major metropolitan area near you, 20 miles away, post it there. It's going to attract more candidates. You're going to get a higher volume of candidates to apply, and you can weed through them at that point. But if you post in your actual market area, if you post in the actual city where the terminal is, and it's a smaller city, it's not going to get the attention of the amount of drivers it would if you posted it in a major city.
Okay, that makes sense. That's easy enough for me to remember. I mean, I watch it, I don't know if you know Randy Kurek. I think he's an absolute savant about recruiting. To listen to him talk about recruiting is to watch, Jedi Knights of recruiting. I mean, he's got such an insight into it. But I also get so intimidated by listening to him because I think, how could most contractors implement something with the level of complexity and sophistication like he's doing? Like I nod up and down going, amen, brother. Yes, that's what I want to do. And then I think, who's got the time for all that? So I think, how do you do something like that, but on a smaller scale to allow for the time and energy and money budget of most contractors? Because I mean, Randy's working with a very large operation, but his principles all apply. Any insight there in terms of what a smaller operator can do to have a good recruiting engine?
Again, goes back to think outside the box. It really depends on what you're advertising as well, where you advertise it. A lot of contractors like to go to social media. I think it's a great place to post ads, on Facebook, on any type of social media platform that's worked for them. But to think outside the box, go onto a CDL driver page. I'm on probably 20 different pages and groups of CDL drivers. And obviously I'm not a driver myself, but they're all on there looking for work. You can post onto there for free. One, keep your marketing budget down and post exactly what you have to offer. And you will receive comments, messages, phone calls in the next 30 minutes to an hour. Don't just go with the norm of posting onto a job board, posting an actual job ad, going onto Craigslist. Think outside the box, go into groups, go into extra pages, go to places that drivers actually congregate and talk about what they're looking for with each other and make your presence known that this is what I have. You will attract more candidates that way. They will start looking at your company more. Just go to use different avenues, I guess, is the best way to say it. I've used every job platform you can think of. I have found some that I think work phenomenally, and I have found some that, are not worth $10 an ad. So you have to find the one that works for you. You have to find the one that works for your area and what you're advertising. It depends on the route.
I get that you're not giving away your trade secrets because this is what you do. So you're not going to say where, but you have to understand, for folks watching this, including myself, I'm thinking, well, you just made a lot of work for me because now I got to go experiment and find these things and try them and learn all this stuff, which again gets back to the whole problem of a time limited TSP owner, right? How do you find the time to do all this right and get up the learning curve, which nicely done. You're convincing us all that we need to work with someone like you.
Thank you.
In terms of the marketplace, if we go back in time, you all started this business in June, but you've been doing it 8 years. COVID and in 2021, 2022, absurd demand for drivers relative to the supply, right? Huge imbalance. It was a driver's market, if you will, as opposed to the owner's market where you could just put an ad out and take your pick of 20 candidates. Now you were chasing people with dollars and everything else you could throw at them, right?
Right.
Still that bad? Is it coming in a little bit? What's your forecast? Where are we at and where do you think we're going?
It's definitely coming back. Thank goodness. COVID was rough. You had a lot of drivers who were scared. They were nervous. They used the available funds, where you could take off. Then you had drivers who lost their jobs. So it just kind of depended on the time of, okay, we have nothing, or, okay, we just had 30 applications in one night. What's going on? But it is definitely getting a lot better. They are coming back. They're coming back to work. Of course, during the Christmas season, everybody, holiday season, really, everybody has a harder time looking for drivers because they are taking those top dollar seasonal positions. They want to make $350 to $400 a day and run up until January. So really start preparing now for what you need in the first quarter of 2023, because the second that the holiday season is over, these drivers are going to come back in bulk. They're going to be looking for that full-time position. If they didn't stay on with their seasonal to become a full-time driver, they're going to be looking for something full-time.
Are you able to put, it's probably not a fair question, but put like a ballpark price on what it costs to pay a solo or team driver these days per mile or other things, or actually a cost of acquisition to get a driver? Any of those numbers you can share in your opinion?
For the solo team driver pay, it depends on your market. You really have to do research on the market trends. So certain areas, where I'm at here in Nashville, Tennessee, you have to pay quite a bit more than you would if you were in St. Louis, Missouri, or Georgia. For some, you have to look at your market trends.
Why is that? Not why do you have to look, but why are there disparities by metro area? There's just nobody in Nashville. Everybody wants to play country music, so nobody wants to drive a truck. What's going on?
I think it's the cycle again. It's a vicious cycle where every company wants to be the best and get the most drivers. So they are throwing every dollar, every penny they have at these drivers. And that is causing everyone else to follow in suit. They are having to offer the most because these drivers here are picky. The retention rate is not that great in Nashville either. You can get a really good one who'll stay with you for 10, 15 years, and then you'll have one that shows up and quits after 2 months. Companies are almost doing it to themselves by trying to outbid the other. Get yourself a good driver, pay them at the market rate that's average right now, and treat them well, and they'll stay. Cost of living definitely is a big factor, but to me, then again, it isn't, because most of these guys are staying out. That truck is their home. They go home once or twice a month, but companies are doing it. They're kind of competing against each other, which ends up making the market just skyrocket. You have to pay 70 cents for a solo to even get a driver to look at you.
Okay. And yet in other markets, like you mentioned, St. Louis, for example, a lot easier to hire.
Much easier. The driver pool is very big. You could put an ad out for a solo home daily run. I recruited out of St. Louis for a little while, and I remember I could post an unassigned or a dedicated, as long as that tagline said home daily, we would have 50 applications by the next morning.
Let's say that I got a call from FedEx's BDS and they said, we have 4 unassigned runs available in pick a market somewhere that I don't operate in, right? How would you recommend I go about researching how hard or easy it is to hire drivers over there and what the market rate is?
Put yourself in the driver's shoes. Go and look. Go on Indeed. Go on ZipRecruiter. Go and look at, if you are possibly getting awarded some solo runs, type in home daily and see what pops up. See what your competition is offering. Where do I need to be to set myself aside? What are their trucks looking like? Do they have newer equipment? What are their benefits ranging? Do they have 401ks? Does it really honestly seem like anybody has it? So is it maybe not that big of a perk for this market? You kind of need to put yourself in the driver's shoes, what they have to do every day looking for a job.
And are the ads a good indicator? Because like sometimes you can look at ads for houses for sale, for example, and that's what people are asking, but where it's trading is very different, right?
Right. The ads are a big thing, but honestly, I think another way to do this is go ahead and post an ad yourself. Even if you haven't committed to the run, post something that says, most solos, if you're getting unassigned, you're going to be running Tuesday through Saturday. Post home daily, post a range, and say, base it off of experience and see what your response rate is. Go ahead, throw it out there. You may not have the run yet, but test the waters before you go in and commit. See what your response rate looks like.
Oh, I like that. That seems like a much better test, right? Because if you post it at 75 cents a mile and nobody calls you, that should be
a big indicator. Yes. So test the market. Go ahead and put your company out there and see what it looks like. See what type of candidates, see the quality of applicants. That's a big thing. You could get 50 applications, but maybe 10% of those actually stay at one job for a year to 2 years at a time. All the others are job hoppers.
Have you ever worked with a client where you had a big retention problem and the client was the problem?
Yes, definitely. It goes right back to communication. They were offered top dollar. I mean, they were getting almost 85 cents on a team run and they quit. And in my position here, in my role with Square One, yes, we placed the candidates, but I want to know what went wrong. So I would call those candidates myself. And luckily, no contractor has really done that here. We have some pretty great people that we work with. But in my experience before, yes, I would call them. What went wrong? We offered you everything that you were looking for. Well, I could never get a hold of so-and-so. I was stuck at a terminal for 10 hours and nobody answered me. They were left alone. They didn't have any help out on the road. They were on their own when they were promised that they would always have somebody there to help them, or at least get them out of a situation they can't get out of themselves. FedEx is a tricky market. I mean, you can be stuck at a terminal just like any other freight carrier. You can be stuck somewhere, but there's always something a contractor can do. If that terminal doesn't have freight, call one that's 50 miles away. Eat that, I guess, bobtail miles just to get them to a load that can get them back home. So it was that contact, and it was not taking enough of an initiative to help them get back home when they were promised 2 days every week because they have 3 kids.
Have you ever met an owner who might be very good at running their business, but you would advise them don't be responsible for recruiting or dealing with drivers because it's not your long suit?
Yeah, I've dealt with some, have a heart of gold, but come off very cold, maybe, very monotone, doesn't excite a candidate. And, what would be my opinion on recruiting? They call them and it's just gets to the point when I know that once they get employed there, it's going to be great. They're going to be very well taken care of. They're going to have a home. They're going to have a great career, but that initial contact is just not there. It's a first impression type deal. You have to be able to read people and know, like, okay, well, everything you have is great, but I think you should let me take the lead on this one.
So what are some of the other common mistakes that you see contractors making that you would advise them on how to fix today? What haven't I asked you that I should have?
I think a big thing right now, the communication part we've touched on, the, really making a good first impression. Yes, there's the money. Yes, there's the benefits. First advantage. I think that's a piece that's not touched on enough, and how you could go about improving your first advantage process and really getting those drivers out of that system as quickly as possible.
Any insight there? Because I know that there's not a TSP out there who doesn't want to speed that up.
Get on there. If you have the time, if you have somebody who is dedicated to it, get on there every day, multiple times a day. Just because you looked at an MVR and it wasn't done yet at 11 a.m., go back on there at 1, it might be done.
Moving things faster and better through First Advantage. I've heard that from many sources. I know there's companies whose sole purpose in life is helping people deal with First Advantage. Ed Traud's out there, Josh Crocker's out there, and there's more. So we know that First Advantage is a pain point, but I hear you. People should get better at it, right? Just because it sucks doesn't mean you can't be good at working with a clumsy system. Mm-hmm. And certainly, I love the idea of doing the employment verification and cutting that down potentially days to hours, right?
Yes.
It all comes down to time and being a people person, doesn't it?
It does. You have to enjoy the job. I was in sales before recruiting. So one of my philosophies is if they say no, that means they don't know enough. And I haven't sold this position, this company well enough. So I will get them, if I don't have the answer, if I don't have the information. One thing I didn't say is obviously, don't BS these guys because they can read it. They've been, pulled around so much by so many different companies. They know when you're lying. They know when you're offering, high quality products, but you're getting a Walmart value. They know the difference. So be honest with them. If you don't know the answer, find it out and come back to them. They are looking for someone who's going to be genuine and somewhere they know that they can trust their manager, the owner, whatever the case may be. Fulfill your promises. Obviously, that's a big one, but it is something that circulates throughout the driver pool that they all talk about. Well, this person offered me this much a mile, but when I got hired on, they take out this many cents for this and they didn't disclose that. So they're not making as much as they said they were. Really look at what you're offering and making sure obviously you can fulfill it, because they will be able to call you out pretty quickly if they can tell that that's not the case.
Someone much smarter than me described the TSP business as essentially that of an outsourced staffing agent and a fleet manager. And if the folks watching can't tell, if you're not good at staffing, you're falling down on half the responsibility, right, that you have as a TSP, which is not to say get out of the business, but if you're not good at it, hire someone, whether internally or externally, who is, and make it a competency. And I don't think personally, and maybe you disagree, but I don't think recruiting requires a PhD in psychology or anything else. It just requires tuning your antenna to understand people and communicate well and learning from experience. When things don't go right, the next time do it better, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's engaging with the people you talk to. It's making them feel like they can talk to you. And maybe, you know, I like to ask them about, you know, if they say anything about their families, if they say, you know, I like to engage on that. I don't just kind of blow that off like, oh, well, I have 2 kids at home. Oh, that's great. How old are they? I have 2 kids as well. Make them feel like you care and you genuinely want to give them, you know, you want to help their life in some way, make an impact, get them the job that they want. And if you don't have it, you can go find it. Like, hey, you know, this contractor doesn't have this, but let me see if there's someone else who does. So really help them find exactly what they're looking for. That's not only going to help them, but help their families, overall improve the quality of life.
I think that's a great place to end on, because just looking at the jobs you're offering is not a job, but as a way to impact people's lives, their families' lives. You summed it up perfectly. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
We're going to provide all your contact info. As we mentioned at the beginning, anybody who wants to reach out to Jessica just to talk recruiting, she's a tremendous resource and a very generous person with her time when she's got it to give. And certainly if you're interested in Jessica's work at Square One and maybe being one of the few clients she can take on in the beginning of Q1 of 23, you should reach out to her. I'm envious that you're in that position, that you get to be picky. Congratulations. Jessica, I hope you'll consider coming back and talking with us again soon about what's going on in the, driver job market.
Absolutely. And if you don't mind, I know I didn't say this before, but with Square One, we do the full cycle, but that does include, just to let everyone know, it does include advertising. It includes everything. Your whole recruiting budget goes into our laps. We will post the ads. We will screen the candidates. We will First Advantage process them, get the drug test done. The only thing that the contractor is required to do is the road test, just because we can't be everywhere at once. Once that road test is done, we will make sure they're fully compliant in driver management. And when you get them back, they are active and ready to dispatch.
Awesome. It's a pity you can't scale to handle 1,500 contractors just yet.
I wish if I could clone myself and clone my partner, I would, but we want to make sure we give everybody the same amount of time, the same amount of, our willingness, I guess, and they're all treated the same.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jessica. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks everyone for being here.